Americans have had enough of supporting companies that are woke. Are you guys tired of compromise? It's time to switch over to Patriot Mobile. Patriot Mobile offers dependable nationwide coverage, giving you access to all three major networks, which means you get the same coverage you've been accustomed to without funding the left. When you switch to Patriot Mobile, you support the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the sanctity of life, and our military veterans and first responder heroes. Their 100% US based customer service team makes switching easy. Keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade. Their team will help you find the best plan for your needs. Just go to patriotmobile.com/herd or call 972-PATRIOT. Again, that is patriotmobile.com/herd or 972-PATRIOT. When you use the code HERD, you get a free activation when you switch over. Join us. Make the switch today, my friends. Stop funding the left. Fund causes that want to fund causes that you support. So patriotmobile.com/herd for free activation. But anyway, my friends, we have an exciting segment to this show. We have my friend Abby Johnson joining us. Abby, I am so honored to have you on the show. You're obviously your story has been life changing for probably millions of people. You know, I'll be liberal and I'll be conservative and say thousands. But seriously, like you know, I've seen your movie Unplanned. It was great. And then you went and left that abortion clinic, I believe Planned Parenthood, and then you ended
Yeah.
up eventually becoming radically anti-abortion. And I think you founded the organization, and then there were none, right?
Right. Yep.
Right.
I
And
did. Yeah.
so,
That was in 2012.
right. And so most people know your story, but I guess it just maybe in like a 30 seconds to a minute, you can kind of explain for some people in the audience may not know. So who is Abby Johnson and what happened?
Yeah. So thanks for having me on. I worked at Planned Parenthood from 2001 to 2009. So 8 years. Got involved as a college kid. Didn't know anything about Planned Parenthood. Didn't really know anything about abortion. Um, Grew up in a conservative home, but we just didn't talk about abortion. It's just kind of a different time. And worked my way up, became a director, got involved believing I was doing the right thing, believed that I was helping women, right? And eventually was called in to assist with an ultrasound guided abortion. Ultrasounds are not typically used during the abortion procedure. And I witnessed a live abortion of a 13-week-old baby. And I saw that baby fighting and struggling for his life against the abortion instruments. And I'd never seen anything like that before. To my knowledge, an abortion like that had never been performed at my facility. And I knew then that there was life in the womb, that there was humanity in the womb, that this was not choice, that this was not reproductive justice, this was not healthcare, that what I had witnessed was the deliberate, it was the intentional destruction of an innocent human life. And we have a word for that in our country. It's called murder. And I knew that's what I had witnessed. And that was it, that came along with huge ramifications, right? Because during that time, I'd also had two abortions of my own. And so I had to really come to terms with the fact that I had murdered two of my own children and had been complicit, had been participatory in over 22,000 abortions during my 8 years at Planned Parenthood. And, that's a big burden to bear. That's a lot of sin to carry. That's a big weight. But that eventually led me back into a relationship with Christ. And, I'd grown up knowing the Lord and loving him and came into a saving relationship with him when I was 8 years old, but had actively walked away from him when I was in college. And so coming back into the arms of the Lord was really what healed me. And yeah, and I've been just kind of fighting this battle, you know, uh, awkwardly, I guess, for the past 14 years and doing some things right and some things wrong. And um, hopefully more right than wrong now since I have been doing it for so long. But God just continues to, uh, reveal things, I think, to all of us. And I I hope that the things that I do just bring honor to him and help redeem some of that time that I spent in the abortion industry.
Right. That's cool. I like I also like how they painted that kind of story in the movie where like you kind of grew up in the Christian household and then
Yeah.
straight away obviously got into the abortion clinic. You know, I heard somewhere that did you like join like a church that was pro-abortion, I think, or something like that? I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
remember. Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I grew up Baptist
Mm-hmm.
and Southern Baptist, obviously Southern Baptists are not for abortion uh and I but then I when I became when I started working at the abortion clinic, I was like, well, this isn't going to work. I mean, I knew I still needed to go to church, right? That was a habit that was formed for me. Like I still need to go to church, even though I'm working at the abortion clinic. And so I was going to church, and one Sunday at this Baptist church I was going to, they said that they were going to go and pray out in front of the abortion clinic where I worked. And I was like,
No
oh, shoot,
way.
like
Wow.
this isn't going to work for me. Um, so then we went to another church. When that church found out that I worked in the clinic, they were like, you can't come here anymore. And which I don't think that's the way to go either, right? I mean, like, I think we need to, obviously, we need to minister to sinners, right? Um, so I was like, oh, okay, well, so I need to find a pro-choice church, and that exists. That sounds like an oxymoron, but that exists within the American Episcopalian Church.
Oh yeah.
And the Episcopalian Church, it makes people mad when I say it, but it is just the truth. The American Episcopalian Church is incredibly pro-abortion. It's in their national doctrine. It's on their website. They support abortion in any and all cases. Any reason is a good reason for abortion,
And LGBT and
according to
all that other
them.
stuff too.
Yeah, and I mean, look, when I worked at Planned Parenthood, the head of their church, which is a bishop, the head of the Episcopalian Church is a bishop. At that time, it was a woman, which red flag.
Oh
Um,
goodness. Just
it
red
was a
flags all over
woman.
the place.
Yeah, it was a woman named Catherine Ragsdale. Catherine Ragsdale at that time was the head bishop of the Episcopalian Church and also was the head of NARAL, our country's largest uh, abortion rights group. Um, so this is not a secret. They are also the Episcopalian Church is also one of the largest donors to the RCRC. The RCRC is the Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice. So they pay for Christian women to get abortions. You can go fact check that at rcrc.org. Um, so, I mean, almost all of the people I went to church with were donors to Planned Parenthood. I knew them. So they loved it that I was there. They loved that I was part of their congregation. I mean, look, I was in the choir. I was like a big time part of the church. My daughter was baptized Episcopalian. Um, and so we were in it. And the one thing I will say about the Episcopalian Church is that they do community really well. And so they're really good at drawing people in to their
I have
church.
a before moving on with your testimony with that. I have a quick question about this.
Yeah.
So, man, like when you say you're in a choir and like I'm sure like their processes of church is pretty similar to most churches. You know, you have
Mhm.
worship, and then you
Yeah.
have like the sermon, and then communion, and
Yeah.
whatever. I'm just like, okay, but like you're sitting there, like they're sitting there worshiping Jesus or whatever. Like they're sitting there like reading their Bibles. There's a sermon. Usually there's worship. How do they get around? Like how you're like there for like an hour or so, probably
Yeah.
longer. I'm just like, how do these churches get around those scriptures that are just obvious, like not just abortion, but just like sin overall? Like, I don't know how you just get around stuff like that. Like, I go to a church now, and I'm just like, sin is mentioned every Sunday, and like I don't know how it's not mentioned every Sunday. You know, like how do they?
Yeah, but Jaden, that is even in Baptist churches today, even in so many, I would say the majority of churches in the United States, even good churches, are so rarely talking about sin. I mean, the
Absolutely.
fact that you're in a church that's talking about sin is beautiful, but there's so rarely churches nowadays. Pastors don't want to talk about sin
Yeah.
because they don't want to alienate their congregation. And, as people say to me all the time, Christian women, no Christian woman can have an abortion. I'm like, of course they can. Christian women are having abortions all the time. They're having abortions every day. One of the reasons Christian women are having abortions is because they don't even know it's a sin.
Correct.
They're being told, there are so many Christian women who are sitting in churches every single Sunday that are being told by their pastor that, and this is what we were told in the Episcopalian Church, that life does not begin until first breath. Because in Genesis, it says that God breathed life into Adam.
Yeah.
And
But we
so
weren't
that
formed like
gives,
Adam.
that's right.
Yeah.
But that's what they say. That's what they use. They completely dismiss, Psalm, where it says we were created in our mother's womb. They don't talk about those verses. So they can dismiss those other verses. They don't even talk about them. They pretend like they don't exist. And so in the Episcopalian Church, in so many churches, I would say the overwhelming majority of churches in our country today, it's all about being a good person, and it's all about feeling like a good Christian. But we're not talking about God being a just God. We're not talking about sin. We're not talking about the repercussions of sin. And no, most pastors do not want to talk about hell. I mean, most pastors do not want to talk about what eternity is going to be like for those who do not have an active relationship with the Father. And um they want to pretend like it's just about being good or about being nice or about being involved in the church potluck once a quarter or being on the building committee or whatever, or singing in the choir. Nobody's talking about these eternal consequences of sin.
Correct.
And that's the problem. I mean, look, we had women, I tell people this all the time, Jaden. We had women that were sitting in the waiting room of our abortion clinic reading their Bibles, looking for scriptural justification for their abortion. We had women asking us to pray for them before we started their abortion procedure while they're lying on the table. And we would.
Mm.
We had, women, Catholic women. I mean, there's nobody more clear than the Catholic Church on the sin of abortion, right?
I'll give that to y'all. Absolutely.
Okay. 100%, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
don't think there's any Protestant that can say that Catholics have not been leading from the front on the issue of abortion, okay?
Absolutely.
There'd be women on the table, blood pressure cuff on this arm, holding a rosary in this hand.
Man.
This, but we're all failing. We're all failing from the pulpit in regards to addressing sin and addressing eternal consequences from our unrepentant sin and our unrepentant hearts.
Absolutely. I've said this on the show so many times. You know, this show's called Let It Be Heard, where we analyze culture and social issues, current events from a biblical perspective. But ultimately, that's the substance of the whole show is the Bible, right? So,
Yeah.
and that should be the substance of culture, of school, of church, obviously. Yet, for some reason, we've strayed from that, and we've chosen to choose a secular way to handle this issue, or a secular way to address different cultural issues. for example, the church, right? They'll, like you said, they might even mention some sort of sin, like, oh, you're not being kind to someone else. That's just, which is okay, sure. It's one of the fruits of the spirit. You need to be kind to one another. But what about when the Bible says that you need to not, I don't know, not have sex out of wedlock, or a lot of people show up to church and the night before, you know what I'm saying, they went to the bar and they had a little bit too much to drink,
Yeah, they got
and
drunk.
why hasn't the pastor preached on 1 Corinthians 6:9? You know, or not to be drunk with wine, but be drunk with the Spirit. You know, so like churches do a bad job in that. Is like church should just be Sunday. It should be Monday through Friday or Monday through Saturday as well. Okay, it should be every day of the week, not just on Sunday. Okay, for Catholics, for example, since I guess that's mainly your audience. You know, you don't take the Eucharist on Sunday, and then the following Saturday you don't take the Eucharist times 100,000 as far as alcohol goes. No, like you take the
Well,
Eucharist, you know, like
yeah.
you know what I'm saying, like
So
that's not.
here's one of my biggest pet peeves with Catholic culture, Jaden, and this is just here we go. Abby, Catholic, off the cuff. Okay, one of my biggest pet peeves with Catholic culture is drunkenness, and I go.
Have you been to like a Turning Point conference or something like that?
Well, I know,
Sorry. Sorry.
but I know, but I go to events and they're like, oh, do you want wine? You want wine? You want wine? And I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm good. Because my husband's sober. So he's been sober for 3 years. We don't drink. And people are like, oh, but we're Catholics. It's a Catholic event.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I get it, but we don't participate in that sort of Catholic culture. Why is that? Why is it that if you go to a Catholic event, the expectation is that everybody's going to be drunk and rowdy,
You
right?
know, there's kind of that same thing in all like for example, like some denominations are just known more for being for cursing, for like cussing a lot. You
Mhm.
know, some denominations are like, why is it like? Oh, we know why, because pastors aren't preaching on it. But like, there, every denomination, and then the Catholics and whoever else, the Baptists, they all are known for like their one thorn in the flesh or their one
Mhm.
sin. You know what I'm saying? It's like, shouldn't you be known for holiness and obedience
Right.
and not
Totally.
sin?
Totally.
You know,
And
it's,
but I mean, this is the thing. This is why this has happened, Jaden. I think you'll agree with this because you just kind of said it. We have secularized our churches. We've secularized the conservative movement. The
yes.
conservative movement was not based on secular ideas. The conservative movement was based on Judeo Christian ideas. But now you go to these big events. The first time I ever heard you was at one of those big conservative events. You were the only person in that entire night that got up on stage and mentioned the name of God. That event raised millions and millions and millions of dollars, the most money I've ever seen be raised
I
at an
almost,
event.
Abby, I almost passed out at my table. Like, how much money? Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Not one mention of the Lord Jesus Christ until you got up on the stage. And you're a student. The only reason that you even got up there was because you won their student leader award or whatever. Not one mention from their founder and president, not one mention from any of the donors that stood up there, not one mention. Because that entire group has secularized themselves. The person that's running for president, completely secular. Okay.
We're
Let's
gonna
not
get into
even
that too.
pretend.
Yeah.
Let's not even pretend. Okay. That he's a man of faith. Okay.
But
Let's not.
Abby, but Abby, but Abby, we have the USA Bible now. We have the
Yeah,
God
I
Bless
mean, come
America
on.
Bible.
I
Come
mean,
on.
you can get as many black people as you want to around him and lay hands on him and pray for him. That does not mean he is a man of God. Okay, like just cut it out. People are always like, Abby, oh, but Abby, I'm not praying for, I'm not voting for a pastor. I'm voting for a president. Well, you know what? Maybe we need a pastor up in here. Maybe that's the problem. maybe that is the problem with this country, is that
Amen.
we are so devoid of Christ in the White House. We're so devoid of Christ in the halls of Congress. Maybe that is why we're in the crap storm we're in right now, because we do keep using these excuses, these justifications. We've now have a man that is known for adultery. We have a man that is known for immorality. And instead of going, we should have a higher standard, we go, we're not voting for a pastor, guys. We're not voting for it's fine. We're not voting for, but didn't you see all these people around him praying for him? Didn't you know that Paula White is his spiritual advisor? Give me a break. Like,
First of
that
all,
should be the first red
yeah.
flag. Like,
Yes,
what are we doing? And
absolutely.
everybody's willing to stand around and go, abortion's murder, abortion's murder, abortion's murder, until it's an election year. Now abortion is something we're willing to compromise on?
And
Give me a break.
I have a just segueing into that. We're seeing not only the big man, the big boss, compromise on abortion, but you got Carrie Lake out of Arizona now. I mean, I've been all over her comment section, and then you got like other GOP candidates all across the country compromise on abortion. And these are some reasons. I wrote down some reasons why they'll compromise on it. Said so they'll say abortion is a losing issue, which we'll get into. They'll say, "Oh, we need votes. We need to appeal to moderates."
Mhm.
And then, or some voters, genuine pro-life voters who believe that that abortion's murder from conception, they'll say, "Oh, well, they're just saying this," and then once they get in office, they'll be 100% pro-life.
Yeah,
Okay,
right. Mhm.
yeah. So
Yeah, because
like,
we always see that. That historically, that's what we always see, Jaden. Right.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
and it's not just
Totally.
and that's not just only for you guys watching who don't even care about abortion for real. Who maybe your issue is illegal immigration. They're not good on this either. Like they don't
No.
keep their promises on this stuff either. So why do you keep anyway? Let's stick to anyway. But abortion is a losing issue. For example, is the main talking point. You know, they'll say this. Okay, my friends, and Abby, you can chime in too. Donald Trump ran on appointing pro-life justices in 2016 and won by a landslide, and appointed justices that ended up overturning Roe v. Wade. And you mean to tell me abortion is a losing issue? He was more pro-life in 2016 than he is now, and he's losing now, and he was winning in 2016. How does that? I don't understand how that correlates there. But
It doesn't
I
make
mean,
any sense. It doesn't make any sense, number one. Number two, I don't care if it's a losing issue.
I was gonna ask
It's
you
a
that. Yeah.
gospel issue.
All right.
This is a Jesus issue. You know what? Jesus died on the cross. The mess anybody would say, um, when Jesus was alive, I bet the apostles were like, dude, what you're saying, it's a losing issue. They're about to crucify you over it. Like, just to let you know, you might want to shut your trap because you're about to hang on a cross and it's a loser. Okay. It's a loser. So just like cut it out, right?
100%.
Jesus's message that he was proclaiming, it was a losing issue, but he didn't shut up about it. He died for it. He died for all of us. He sacrificed himself for all of us for a losing issue, quote
Correct.
unquote, right?
Correct.
But he did it so that we could all win. Okay. I see this as the same sort of principle. Even if the world says this is a losing issue, then I'm willing to lose. Okay. I'm willing to
Yes.
lose for the next 15, 20, 25, 50 years. I'm willing to lose because I know that I am standing on godly principles. And that is a win. That's a win. And here's the deal. In all honesty, and pro-lifers do not want to hear this. Okay, I'm going to say it right now. They don't want to
I'm
hear it and they
excited.
hate when I say it. Okay.
Uh-oh.
I'm not worried about the eternal souls of these babies. Yes, I want every baby to be born. Yes, I want every baby to be born and for their lives to be full of potential and their lives to be lived out to that full potential, 100%, okay?
Mm,
I want
yeah,
abortion to end. Yes, 100%. But I'm not worried about the souls of these children because I know at the end of the day, every single one of these children, they're going to live their lives out in heaven.
100%.
And so I'm I'm not worried about that.
By the way,
I am worried.
By the way, before for you guys who may have some issue with that, that's biblical. Okay, that is actual Bible. Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is like a child. Okay,
Yes.
um, and also the child has done nothing wrong. Like the child hasn't sinned against anyone, so obviously God's
No.
not going to punish them for anything. So
Right.
that would be where Abby would get that from. So, but sorry, go ahead, Abby. Sorry, I have to
So
clarify
I'm
that for
not,
some
and
audience.
I'm not saying, well, then there shouldn't be a problem with abortion because they're all going to heaven. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah,
It's still murder,
right.
right? It's still murder. It's still wrong, no matter what. It's still a sin, even though the children's souls are at peace with the Lord, right? What I'm worried about is our culture. What I'm worried about is the people who are actually committing the murder. I'm worried about their soul. I'm worried about the ones who are working the clinics. I'm worried about these women. I'm worried about what happens to a culture that is willing to devalue and murder its most innocent, right? Because that creates a natural dehumanization sort of effect in our culture.
Mm,
And we're already seeing that happen. Roe v. Wade promised to get rid of poverty, to get rid of child abuse, every child a wanted child, right? It was going to strengthen the family, all this kind of stuff. It has done the exact opposite. What do we see now? Higher rates of poverty, higher rates of fatherlessness. Children, there are more children without a father than with a father in the home.
correct.
Higher rates of poverty, higher rates of child abuse, higher rates of divorce. Everything has skyrocketed since we have allowed legal abortion. Why? Because if you're willing to kill the most vulnerable person among you, then you're willing to harm anyone. And that's just a fact.
Yeah. Once you
So
create,
we've seen this disordered society. We live in a very disordered society.
right.
That's why we want to stop abortion. And so I think that's kind of where we're at. There's never been a time where we've elected someone who says, I'm moderate on abortion, and then they've done a switcheroo when they've gotten in office, and all of a sudden they've been 100% pro-life. Never in history has that ever happened. For someone to believe that Trump is trying to pull the wool over moderate or liberals' eyes, and then all of a sudden he's going to get in office and be 100% pro-life makes you look like a fool. That is not going to happen.
So I have a quick statement too. I mean, once you create a culture of death, I mean, why do you expect everything else to work out? Like you said, there's all this degeneracy that's kind of
Yeah.
increased over the years. Of course, that's going to happen when you allow a culture to have legal killing of innocent human beings. I mean, look at history. Okay, I talk about this all the time, but like the historical abolitionist movements of slavery, for example. I mean, they weren't out here saying, "Oh, we're going to vote for someone who's, pro everything else, but also, but pro slavery, you know what I'm saying? But I agree with him on everything else." No, the slave abolitionists stood on business. Okay, they
Mm-hmm.
said it's got to go. Okay, I mean, what's the guy's name? What's the guy's name out of the UK? What's his name? The abolitionist, the slave abolitionist. I can't even think of him right now. It starts with a W. I can't even think of it.
Wilberforce. William Wilberforce.
Wilberforce. William Wilberforce. Homeboy like fought for like 20 years until like his
Yeah.
death day. And
Yeah.
and he put the same bill, the same thing over every single session. Same thing. No slavery. Abolish it. And it didn't have no exceptions in it. It didn't
That's
have
right.
any compromises in it. Even if it costed him whatever, even if he lost every single time, That's not what matters ultimately. What matters is you're standing on principle, you're standing on Bible, you're standing on the gospel. And that's ultimately, if the pro-life, I swear, if the pro-life movement did this, this is what I believe the vision of the pro-life movement should be. If we stood on Bible, if we returned back to Bible, our goal and accomplishments would be much easier to accomplish because first of all, we know we'd be in good standing with God, and God's going to honor that. He'd honor
Yeah.
that absolutely, 100%. You know, he said that he came to give life and life more abundantly in John 10:10. You know, so I don't understand why we've secularized everything as far as not only the pro life movement but just the conservative movement as a whole. Like you said earlier, traditional values is what founded conservatism. You know, the Bible is what we all agree upon as far as conservative values, yet we've strayed from that. You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah,
don't
but
want to
even
hold you.
look at
Yeah,
even
go
look at
ahead.
the conservative movement though, Jaden. Like we've got, log cabin Republicans, right? We've got all of these, you know, homosexuality is now
Yeah,
alive and well in the conservative movement. And not only and look, I mean, if you want to be a gay Republican, be a gay Republican. Great. Okay? Like come on in, whatever. But it's not just that. The conservative movement has given them a large platform. Okay? That's the difference.
they play identity politics like just like the
Yes.
left does.
Just like the left. They're no different. No different. And so I used to be a person. I will admit this. This was when I said I've been like awkward in this movie. I mean, I have been. God has really revealed things to me over time, and I think part of it has been spiritual maturation and just growing closer to the Lord. And He's revealed so many things to me. I used to believe wholeheartedly, and I've given talks about it. How when you vote, when you go to the ballot box, you have two choices, and that's it. You either vote for the conservative guy, you vote for the supposedly conservative, you vote for the Republican, and if you don't vote for the Republican, if you vote third party, you're giving a vote to the Democrat. I used to really believe that. God has really revealed differently to me. And really it's just been over the past like year and a half that you have to vote in the way that the Lord is telling you to vote.
100%.
And if that means that you are writing in a candidate, if that means that you are, voting for someone else, if you're not voting for that typical, that R candidate or whatever, then and if that means that the Democrat wins, then that means the Democrat wins. But at some point in time, people are going to have to stand up and say, we're not going to choose the quote unquote lesser of two evils
Right.
because we're not going to choose evil anymore.
Yeah.
We are going to choose righteousness. And if that means that we continue to lose and lose and lose until people finally stand up and stand up for the Lord, and if that means we lose for the next 30 years and it has to get way worse before Christians finally come together and stand up and say, we're done, then that's what happens. Then that's what it takes. But I'm not going to violate my conscience, and I'm not going to violate scripture and violate the gospel of Jesus Christ in order to get an immoral candidate into office. I'm just not going to do it. I have done that pretty much, I mean, I don't for the past few years.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to do it. Since I have left the Democratic Party and have become Republican, the candidates I have voted for in the Republican Party have been terrible and they have been immoral and they have not lived up to the candidates that I believe that Christians should be voting for.
Absolutely.
And we have to turn that around, and only Christians can turn that around. I do believe we still live in a Christian nation. I don't believe these Gallup poll survey. Nobody's asked me. I mean, have you ever been asked by a surveyor? I don't know anybody. I literally have been going around during my talks and I've been asking people in my talk, hundreds of people, thousands of people, right?
Right.
I go around every time and I ask them, raise your hand if you've ever been asked by a surveyor about your faith or about one of these pro-life, pro-choice polls. I have asked now tens of thousands of people, not one person has raised their hand.
I'm
I
curious
don't
if we
know.
go to March for Life, how many people would raise their hand?
Right.
You know?
I don't know anybody ever that has been polled, that's been surveyed. So I believe that these polls are intentionally trying to tell us to give up.
Hmm.
But I'm not going to give up, and you're not going
Amen.
to give up. And
Right.
most Christians I know, most solid pro-lifers I know are not going to give up. But these large conservative and large pro-life organizations that are just saying, we're just going to throw it to the wind and we're just going to vote for this for immorality and we're just going to vote for this terrible candidate. We're just going to turn in our 30 pieces of silver. We're going to trade our vote for 30 pieces of silver.
That's it right there. That's it.
We've got to hold these people accountable.
That's good. That's so good. I've had the same conviction actually, Abby. In 2020, I would have laughed at you and I would have said, "You're ruining
Yeah,
our agenda. You're ruining it."
me too.
But I actually, this church I joined, they don't vote. I mean, actually no, they'll vote. They'll vote if the candidate's solid,
Yeah,
but like they don't vote. And I was like, why? Like I actually was taken aback. I'm like, bro, I'm the president of Turning Point on my campus. Like, for me to say this is kind of blasphemous because like I'm literally the guy on campus that like is trying to get people to, you know, and so
yeah,
I was like, what's going on? And then they broke it down, and the Bible breaks it down very simple. For you to condone evil is a sin, right? It's
yeah.
very clear. Like, and so I don't want to participate in that. And so, no, thank you. I'll be writing in Jesus Christ if I can't find a better candidate as far
That's
as
right.
any position, you know. So, Abby, last thoughts before we go. I don't want to keep you too long. Do you have anything else to say? And where can people find you, by the way?
Yeah, so my website is abbyj.com. I have a podcast called Politely Rude. You can find it wherever. Um, I have two ministries, and then there were none, and Pro Love Ministries. One is getting abortion workers out of the industry and getting them into a relationship with Christ. We've helped 700 people do that. And that ministry, then those workers have then turned around and have shut down 48 abortion facilities because of the knowledge and information they have. So that's been a beautiful thing. Pro Love Ministries runs different pro life projects. The one that most people know about is called Loveline. It's a 24-hour hotline for single parents that need assistance and for pregnant moms. And we provide comprehensive case management for people in need. And in the past 3 years, we provided case management for over 4,000 women, and that includes over 10,000 children. And it's not just about providing wipes and diapers and clothes. I mean, we do that too, but it's about changing their lives and it's about bringing them to Christ
Right.
and allowing Him to heal those deep internal wounds that they have. That's why we have licensed Christian counselors and things like that. And so it's been pretty amazing. God has been really good. I mean, it's not me, it's God, but we're just trying to be faithful and just be, instruments in His hands. And He's done a lot of really amazing stuff. And I'm just, traveling, doing what I can. But I also have 8 kids, so trying to steward that at home as well. So, um, yeah, just loving it, just loving what I do. So.
You got your own. You got a whole church. You got a whole ministry at home. Eight
Yeah, that's
kids, you
right. I have
said.
a ministry at home, and I've got a great husband. So, the best thing that I do is to be a wife and to be a mother. But wouldn't have any of it
Amen.
without my husband. So,
Right,
yeah,
right. I love that. Awesome. Well, Abby Johnson, everyone. I mean, that was amazing. I really appreciate you giving us your time. Just giving your testimony, giving your thoughts on things, saying some controversial stuff that's not popular, but I am totally on board with. First of all, but Abby, it was such an honor to have you. Thank you so much for giving me your time. And you guys go check her out. Go watch Unplanned if you haven't. Go show love. Donate to her ministries. Donate to her organizations. Because she deserves it, because God's hand is all over it. So, Abby, thank you again for joining the show.
thanks, Jaden.